And good morning, everybody. I am Frank Spillers with Rural Community Solutions, where we help and assist communities and businesses design family-friendly, youth-centered places that attract the type of person that you want to associate with. So if you're looking to create that environment, if you're looking to create an environment that supports entrepreneurs, and you want an entrepreneurial ecosystem and to build an entrepreneurship economy within your community, this is a place for you, because we talk about entrepreneurship, how to build it, creating the right environment to where it happens. Because really, if you want to attract those entrepreneurs, you have to think like an entrepreneur and be that spark plug that really creates the environment. And so today on our show, I'm really excited because we've got Ben McDougal. Ben is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, and Ben has a huge history. Cheers with the coffee. A huge history with helping to build entrepreneurship, helping to build ecosystems, starting if you probably heard about it, about Million Cups chapters across this country, in the Midwest, specifically in the Midwest region. But we're excited today to announce that Ben has a brand new bestseller book coming out tomorrow. Welcome, Ben.
Good morning, good afternoon, happy yesterday or tomorrow, wherever you're enjoying this from. Frank, it's great to see you, pal, and thanks for having me today.
Oh, thanks for being here and taking the time. I know it's a busy time for you to kick off your book launch. Now, this is book number one for you. Tell me just a little bit about it, and there's some questions I want to ask you about the title. But first of all, tell me about your writing experience, but also tell me about what led you up to this.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. The title is You Don't Need This Book. You can grab it on benmcdougal.com. That's a chance for you to order it direct. I'd love to sign your copy and send it your way as these go out April 1st, fun official launch date. But then also available on Amazon and wherever you enjoy buying your literature. So to answer your question, Frank, this has been quite the literary journey. I have been writing most of my career. I'm kind of in the multi-marketing realm, and so it's a part of my work. And so it was always something I thought about. I think everyone has a story to share, and that was where I was at. I had a lot of entrepreneurial experiences in my own work, but perhaps even more important, I was interacting with like thousands of students and entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs and mentors and investors and entrepreneurial ecosystem builders as this field is merging. And that was perhaps the catalyst that said, boy, I've done some fun things in my life and I'm thankful for that. But I would almost regret not passing this along to friends like you and even my little startup that pays in love. And so that was really the inspiration behind what came together in this synthesized narrative that really is all about how to start that new business, improve an existing company, knowing that entrepreneurship is also a part of this equation. Thinking about it from students and side hustles and even entrepreneurial ecosystem builders. And so being around so many thought leaders and having some experiences of my own, it got to the point where I was losing sleep. And Victor Wang, who wrote the foreword, shared a poem with me that really resonated. It was like I said, everyone has a story to tell, but when it starts keeping you up at night, it might be time to put pen to paper. And that's what happened. So I decided to embark with a blank piece of paper on January 1st, 2020. I used kind of that natural launch pad to begin. And the outline had sat on my phone for 6 months and dropped that in and just kind of wrote. A to Z, right? A lot of authors can go into areas that they're most confident in and then stitch things together. And I think that's a good technique. I chose to just kind of write from the beginning of that spark of ideation. And chapter 2 is community early on and moving through that process of building something that you care about, ending in persistence, because I believe that's the wild card after all these kind of interactions. You can have kind of a bad idea or a team that's perhaps a little dysfunctional, but if you keep grinding, if you keep, allowing your passion to build into the persistence factor, I've seen things that shouldn't work. And so it was a good way to finish the book. Wrote for an entire year. I can talk with folks about their authoring experience, but for me, it was first draft. Use some software to clarify, simplify, and embolden the manuscript before working it through some early readers, bringing in some pretty neat contributors, and then working through the final editing process before, another few months of publishing. So it was a long process, but looking back, Frank, I'm really, really thankful that I've done that. And it's an exciting kind of milestone moment.
Yeah, it is. And we've written a book here also, and there's something to that self-satisfaction that you get your thoughts on paper that is almost your legacy. This is people are going to read it. People are going to know you. They're going to figure out what you're kind of how you tick on that. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about there. I want to talk a little bit about the title. This is kind of interesting to me because you've titled the book, "You Don't Need This Book." So if I don't need the book, why should I get the book?
All sorts of mental confusing elements within this context. Yeah. I mean, the fact is entrepreneurship is best learned through action. So you don't need this book. And honestly, it never changed. This was the title from day one. Admittedly, the outline was originally titled Ideas to Reality, but the moment it started to actually be written, I knew that this was the title. The developmental editors suggested that I add some subtitles so that it wasn't completely ambiguous. And so Entrepreneurship in the Connected Era allows people to connect, with the what's being discussed. But that is true. I mean, you don't need this book to explore your entrepreneurial spirit. And I think while that is true, if you're looking for a friendly jolt, as I kind of write about on the back cover and in the opening remarks, this is everything I know about entrepreneurship in 200 pages and like 37,453 words, right? I wrote this in the style of my favorite writer, author, and thinker. Tribes is one of my favorite books by Seth Godin. And so when you have read some Seth Godin, he has so many books, and you embark on You Don't Need This Book, you're gonna feel some of the similar styles, really dense, but yet every word was thought out. And that is meaningful to me. So to your point, Frank, yes, I think this is a neat relic that kind of marks the mindset that I've kind of learned from around the world and around the Midwest. And I think while it's fun to see sales and that creates a sense of accomplishment, and simply holding this thing means a lot. I know I looked over at a bookshelf when I was writing and envisioned my book on there to keep me motivated and hammering in. But I'm now, as the book is done, I'm definitely most excited to hear from you, right? To hear from people like Frank and Kate and Jody and all these different folks who are embarking in this book, and what resonates, how does it make an impact, and how can I continue to accelerate your work? So the feedback from readers is, I think, what I'm most excited about next.
Yeah. And so that's I want to talk to you a little bit about where we go with this book, because I think that one of the things that I look for in a book is how a community member can pull it off the shelf and help them support an entrepreneur within their community. And so we've got the idea, which is your first chapter, and then your second chapter, as importance, is community and how to build that successful support mechanism for entrepreneurs to build. That's what I mean. The startup community. What is a startup community? What are the elements of the startup community? We have our ideas of what it is. how important is community to you on helping to create an entrepreneurship economy?
It is almost the most important. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I learned that it's a lonely roller coaster, right? It's one of life's greatest gifts to build something that you care about, but it also can create a vacuum when you're working as a lone wolf, right? Or when the team is small, or when you're just exploring the ideation process. And so being around other entrepreneurs is the innovative energy shot that you need in a consistent way. And so along with becoming a part of community and finding your tribe and participating in different events throughout your local entrepreneurial ecosystem, there's also like this opportunity that I write about in leading and finding that tribe you care about, but then evolving into an opportunity to help support others. Frank mentioned it earlier. 1 Million Cups is one of the ways that I've tapped into community every Wednesday for the last 8 or 9 years now. And so having coffee with other entrepreneurs, I know it sounds simple, but it's so healthy. It allows you to exchange ideas. But as I was saying, the energy of accelerating others is unmatched. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from my 1 Million Cups experience is like, asking that good question, making a meaningful connection, sharing a little bit about what you're doing, even if it's this completely different industry. There are key takeaways that people can utilize in their own work. And when you start to become a part of other entrepreneurs' stories, it's very exciting, and it also is energizing for whatever you're working on. And so I think being a part of community, taking that next step and leading within a community, and accelerating others with this like very positive sum. If you win, we win mentality, and focusing on the entrepreneur, a bottom-up approach when we think about entrepreneurial ecosystem building, knowing that the art of connection is a very powerful way to leverage your career portfolio.
Yeah, we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a guest on that was over in Portugal, and that is actually working with a complete island, creating a digital nomad environment. In other words, where entrepreneurs can come, spend 2 or 3 months within the country, so the visas don't get kind of confused on there. But really, they're using it as a recruitment tool to how do we build an entrepreneurial economy within that. And that is, I mean, you wrote a book during COVID. A lot of people started something during COVID, and now their side hustle, as you have described it, their side hustle is starting to turn into their main game, if you will, on building that. And so as we look at community and we look at where communities, and specifically Rural Community Solutions, of course, focuses on rural America. But even if we just look at where you're at in Des Moines, Iowa, and what a great entrepreneurial environment in Des Moines, Iowa, you guys had built over there too. It's one to study, one to copy. But as you're starting to build that, how is the economy, and where are the ecosystems? What would you suggest for community ecosystems right now to start taking advantage of people looking to where to live, rather than trying to find their job and then moving to their job and trying to find a side hustle? But now they're bringing their jobs with them. How can ecosystems really dig in and start to make a difference there?
There's a lot to unpack with that question, Frank, but I'll do my best and riff on it a little bit. So a couple areas that I find very energizing is the diversity and inclusion, the DEI conversation that allows us to go into environments that perhaps we haven't explored before. And of course, be radically inclusive and inviting folks to participate in all ways. And so that is an area that I think is, of course, a focus, but can layer within all the different types of work that you're doing within the ecosystem building conversation. and rural. I know that this audience is specifically interested in the rural innovation and things that are happening in some of our small and medium-sized communities. I am learning a lot about all the beautiful things that are happening both in a small business on the Main Street side of things, but also on the startup and the tech flavored type of things. To Frank's point, it's almost like place first and figure out what you want to do once you've landed in an environment that you're excited about. And in our connected era, it's easier than ever to do so much more with less. You can be working from anywhere and working alongside anyone. And I think while the pandemic has exposed so many challenges, it's also released some silver linings. You are able to teleport into different environments, learn from the perspective of other community builders, other entrepreneurs, accelerate them, building bridges, whether that's a town nearby or a city across the country or a country a world away. We've unlocked some fresh efficiencies that you can lean into as you're importing knowledge into your community and creating a two-way street to export those skills back out into the world. And so whether that's at the education level where you're creating an open-mindedness for students and encouraging them to build versus waiting for a piece of paper, allowing them to be creative and connecting with others to recognize that while, the real world, there's a lot of things happening. Things like STEM are very, very powerful initiatives. And I'm envious of students who are in this kind of mindset so much earlier now. But entrepreneurship can also be woven into that entire curriculum and allowing folks to see how others are doing it, blurring the line and bringing the invitation to anyone that they don't really need this this permission to build something that they care about. And so, Frank, you mentioned side hustles. There's an entire chapter in the book about side hustles. I have been a side hustler, I suppose, along with an entrepreneur. That creates some stability, right? You've got the full-time work that has the salary, some benefits, and you can keep making a ruckus, to fuel positive change in those environments. But then use that entrepreneurial spirit to build something that matters for yourself. There's a little energy that's required to do that, but you're all working out of one machine. And so there's a few things that I would suggest to keep in mind for the side hustle, and that is transparency. Being able to build something that you care about alongside of something where you might have a traditional salaried role. Building in secret is going to become a mental exhaustion, and someone's going to find out, it's going to be a problem, and all of a sudden you've kind of shaken the tree that fed you. Instead, like in the early stages, create some awareness, or before you take that next job, explain that every Wednesday morning I have coffee at 1 million cups, right? Or I've got this Flight Bright company that's shaking things up in the craft beer industry with this electronic beer flight and craft beer festival app. If there's clear awareness out of the gate, that transparency creates the freedom and reduces some of the tension. I think it also is a personal bandwidth balancing act. And so recognizing that your career portfolio can kind of be visualized as a pie chart. You have all these different pieces of the pie, and recognizing that whether it's time, money, connections, or other types of resources, you're putting things into that pie. And as you apply your time into those different areas, things will grow. And even if they're not directly connected, they're all being built simultaneously through your work. But you can dilute yourself to mediocrity. So one good exercise is to think about, pretend you have the time to hit, swing an axe 100 times. Would you rather hit 100 trees once, or 1, 2, maybe a couple trees a few extra times? And I think that allows for the self-awareness to stay focused enough to make a proper impact, but also allow smaller slivers to step back and sit on a back burner and be okay with something that creates energy and creates a good and addition without even being all that profitable. The headline trap, I think, can get in people's way. Seeing these big exits and the crazy tech startup that just changes the world. Well, that's great, and you can do that. But if you don't, it's still okay. And encouraging folks to build and tinker and celebrating those side hustles is a good way that ecosystem builders and community builders can help support that activity and create awareness around that and unite people. I think a lot of rural environments are filled with side hustles, whether that's art that's being sold on Etsy or a book or a lemonade stand or something at the farmer's market, right? Whatever it might be. Connecting those individuals almost builds like a sense of confidence from within, and they're going to continue building into those directions and perhaps even expanding it to become a larger slice of their career portfolio. So I think side hustles have gotten somewhat of a bad rap. You have to focus on one thing in order to do that. Well, if you're taking someone else's money or going out and trying to do something really big, it might require that level of focus. But we can do a lot in the information age, and we're more efficient than ever. I believe that you can find the energy to do a handful of things that all connect through you.
And side hustles are a good, if you will, an experimental place too. I mean, you entrepreneurs you're an entrepreneur because you have a deep core purpose within to serving and to fulfilling your purpose and your passion in there. And through entrepreneurship, that's the way you're going to do it. So if you do have a job, sometimes you feel like you're purposeless on there. And so a side hustle helps to build that up, but it also as kind of a testing ground, if you will, because you have a whole chapter on persistence and as a training ground of, if you're an entrepreneur, we've got news for you. You're going to fail sometimes and you're going to fall down on there too. So that side hustle is kind of a good testing ground to test your persistence to see really if you have the moxie to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, one of the sections within the research, or maybe it's the testing chapter, starts with like, what you start with is unlikely to work, right? And so recognizing the value of pivoting, recognizing that patience, this is long-term work. You have to create some momentum, and the ability to be nimble and build quickly is the leverage that you have that perhaps the competitor or a larger company might not. I think there's value in being realistic as well. You're going to read a lot of dream big and you can do anything in this life. And while that is true, there is value in being humble and bold enough to recognize the type of resources that you have and using those to attract more of what you need. And so I'm not going to probably be able to go out and boil the ocean, but I've got a cup of coffee and I can make that thing the best cup of coffee that you've ever tasted. And so focusing on one area is helpful for the side hustler, so that you're not trying to do too much too fast, right? Let paying customers build a roadmap for future development. Maybe you want to tackle X, Y, and Z. Focus in on X, make that really strong, create some sustainability around that, and that can create the conduit for Y and Z. And so that translates a little bit into entrepreneurship as well. I wasn't sure where to put the entrepreneurship section. I threw it into the end of the side hustles chapter, and I have some sidebars, which are some personal thoughts woven into the mix. And I basically say that all the narrative around entrepreneurship is very similar for entrepreneurs. And for those of you who haven't heard of that term, it's being an entrepreneur inside an existing company. Willing to be a unicorn in your balloon factory, right? Knowing that while the person that's always bringing the ideas is important, the value starts to emerge when you're able to champion those ideas into reality. And so the more times that you kind of make a ruckus, suggest ideas, but then execute and follow through and deliver a reality based off those early thoughts, the more trust you'll gain from your team and the more ability you'll have to not only participate and lead and build from within on new projects, but also be given some freedom to be weird, to go out into the entrepreneurial ecosystem and learn from entrepreneurs. I think a lot of entrepreneurs forget the value of connecting with people who are in other companies and in those entrepreneurial roles. So entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, that's a mouthful, but they really do feed off of each other. And so I write a lot about that relationship within the ecosystem. And I think it's important to consider how side hustles, entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship do really all connect.
So that's really good for an individual. If I'm a manager in a company and you're talking to me about an entrepreneur, what benefit would I have and how would I capitalize about one of my employees being an entrepreneur, and how would I then support and encourage that type of thinking?
It's difficult. Folks who are accustomed to power or perceived power like to control the environment. And in doing so, it creates a sense of satisfaction and conformity, which might add to efficiency and allow you to build into something that's worked in the past. But it's also self-limiting on what you can do moving forward. That translates also into entrepreneurial ecosystem building. The systems thinking is something that is really a common topic when we talk about startup community building and building economic development through entrepreneurship in rural, medium, and large types of environments. It all pertains to that. And so learning, this is another one, the Startup Community Way from Brad Feld and Ian Hathaway. They really lean into how entrepreneurial ecosystems are complex adaptive systems. And so while that's a very large, community level perspective, if you bring it down to just your company, it's still a system. You're working with parts, whether that's human capital, intellectual capital, physical capital, network, all the different types of capitals that you're managing. But when it comes to human capital, I think it takes a good leader, like a progressive mindset, to let others lead. And it's hard to release. It's an ego thing, right? It's hard to release that sense of control. But what happens is by handing that freedom to get creative to your employees, to your co-founders, to the people in your company, you're going to facilitate the next level of passion for that person. And it creates loyalty, it creates buy-in, it creates something that you can't really pay for. It's a genuine interest in the success of something that you're building for yourself. And so if you can find that balance of managing, by example and having leadership so that there's a clear vision, a path forward, and efficient ways of getting to that, while also finding that extra gear of creating the freedom for folks to get creative and build something that might make a ruckus, but could keep you ahead of that innovation curve, knowing that while you've had success in the past and you can lean into those things, there's probably things that you've failed on in the past. There's probably opportunities that your competitors are exploring, you starting to feel behind. Allowing entrepreneurship to be a part of your culture can keep you ahead of those curves.
Wow, I would encourage anybody to go out and get this book, because there's a lot of nuggets in there that will help you build your economy, whether it's in a company or in your community, building and supporting on entrepreneurs. What's the biggest takeaway that you learned that was kind of your aha moment in 2020 writing this book? What's your biggest takeaway and your aha moment for here?
For the book, sorry.
Yeah, because you have put your thoughts down on paper, And it helps you organize everything that you believe in and have a passion for. Was there anything that was uncovered by doing this process that kind of went, oh, wow, or else ingrained it deeper in you that says, yeah, this is really where I'm going to dig in at?
The story was written very easily. That was motivating in the early days. Like, it just kind of flowed. Like, when there's a difference between jargon and understanding. If I use a cool word because it makes you think I know what I'm talking about, that's a nice way to create perhaps some efficiency in our conversation, and move the conversation forward. But if I can talk about something in 10 different ways, whether that's the most concise one-word answer or a book-long narrative, that's the next level. And I think, to me, like, this is exposed the fact that I understand entrepreneurship fairly well, and also how it connects into community and entrepreneurial ecosystem building. And so while I've been a part of the field, and learning about how entrepreneurial ecosystem building, even that term, this professional field as it emerges, I've learned so much, and it's given me a lot of perhaps confidence, or legitimized this interest in the art of connection. All my companies have required like a sense of community, and whether that was networking back in the sales days of just kind of creating some connections, or leaning on other entrepreneurs to ride the roller coaster together. I think I'm not sure if I have like one single aha moment. I know that community in being chapter 2 was an important thing for me. I mean, it's an important piece, I think, in the entrepreneurial journey that often gets overlooked. And so driving that into the book early on, community and marketing are the 2 longest chapters. And, maybe that's my expertise into those realms, or perhaps it's like some of the more important things that can lead to sales, can lead to research and testing, and the different aspects of building a company or building a community. Leaning into some of the thought leaders that I've also learned from, and translating their perspectives in this book was a interesting experience. But also having Brad Feld contribute. He wrote Startup Communities back in 2012. He wrote that Startup Community Way book. Victor Wang was the VP of Entrepreneurship at the Kauffman Foundation, and participating in my regional rep role for the Midwest in 1 Million Cups and working inside the Kauffman Foundation has, furthered my understanding of how entrepreneurship and breaking barriers down to allow all people to explore their entrepreneurial spirit. These types of interactions, not to mention like getting to interact with Seth Godin, who's my it's my hero, right? I've never reached out to him in my life, but I decided to share that. I'm thanking him in my acknowledgments. The style was written like you would see in a Seth Godin book, and I just had to reach out to him and share what I was up to, and he was quick to respond. I was kind of caught off guard, and he ended up inviting me to share the manuscript, and wrote this blurb on the only blurb on the back of the book. It says, "Jam-packed with hard-earned tips, tactics, and approaches for entrepreneurs of all stripes." And if Seth Godin thinks this book is remarkable, that's a lifetime achievement that I will quietly cherish for myself. But I'm sorry I didn't answer your question with like one magical aha moment. But what you'll find in the book is that it's kind of laced with like tweetable thoughts. Every chunky little paragraph is like an aha moment, I think. And so the developmental editors are like, this is dense, but that's okay. Like, it's only 200 pages, but it might take you longer than it looks. And that's a good thing. I think it's a reference. And Frank, I would hope that people find something that is going to impact their work. But I loved your idea of being able to pass this along, whether that's handing the book off after you're done or remembering a couple of those key takeaways and, helping to accelerate that next entrepreneur you're talking with.
See, and if you're a community, what I would really encourage you to do right now is go get the book, but do a book club in your community. Read the book, and then bring Ben in to help discuss the book, like we're discussing it here, and really dig down into how can this book help your community build that entrepreneurial economy. And 98% of the businesses out there, guys, are small businesses, and 98%, that seems like a pretty good popular percentage, but 98% of your new jobs are created by new business ventures and your existing businesses. So this book is going to help you dig within your community and help you organize your environment to where entrepreneurs can thrive and survive. And so with Ben's help and digging deep down, that would be the 1-2 punch that I would recommend that a community does around this book and around this effort. And so, Ben, how would people get a hold of you to really take that next step and to start digging deep into how to build their economy?
Yeah. BenMcDougal.com is an easy place to start. I share my weekly roasted reflections is what I've kind of branded those weekly writings around. And that's going to talk about all sorts of things associated to ecosystem building and the entrepreneurial mindset and everything kind of in between. Within that site, you can find the book. If you order direct, I can hook you up with a little coupon code for those book club orders. Just use club as you're checking out, and you can buy 4 and get that 5th one free. I would love to participate and learn more about what's working in your environment, perhaps areas that you're interested in improving. And while the local environment is something that we can lean into, there's also value in learning from outside of your local community. And so connecting you with other folks, whether it's another rural community in Iowa or perhaps somewhere all around the country, that's an opportunity that we have. And I'd like to facilitate those types of conversations. You'll notice in the community section a project called Communities of Practice. This is something that might allow you and your friends that are interested in this to talk in a very meaningful way and determine how rigid or flexible you want to be, how much of an agenda or how wide open should we have these conversations. What is the subject? What are we going to be talking about? And who needs to participate so that together we can build from within? If you can start activating these community-driven conversations, it's going to generate a lot of opportunities to be inclusive and therefore flexible and in the end, more sustainable. And so finding those folks who care enough in order to build things that they're passionate about while also accelerating others, it can get pretty interesting. And it's somewhat of a different approach and releasing that sense of control, recognizing these are complex systems, using that give first idea where I want to help you, even if I have no idea or why it would come back to me. That type of mindset takes practice, but once it starts to happen, more interesting conversations seem to emerge faster without hidden agendas. Easier said than done, but I'd love to participate in those conversations and really lean into the community building and the entrepreneurial ecosystem aspects, and remembering that entrepreneurs always need to remain the focus. You'll notice on, I think, page 37, let me find it, 39, you'll see a very interesting diagram that allows you to visualize areas of your own community and perhaps reach out to folks that have not participated in this way before, recognizing that the different types of capital, a common thing is, oh, we don't have enough money. Okay, financial capital. That might be true, but you have a beautiful lake nearby. You have a tightly knit community. You have students who are on fire, and you care a lot about the human capital of your community. Leaning into the things that you have can attract the things you want. And that is, I think, liberating for a lot of communities that have perhaps gotten stuck on one aspect of their existing environments.
Yeah, and boy, we could go on and on and on, because this is just this is a passion of mine to visit about this, to talk about this, and to uncover all these gold mine little nuggets, and you're just thinking right along the lines that we think about, and so that's what's so neat about an entrepreneur system, is that all of a sudden you start finding your like-mindedness that you can connect. And that's one thing that COVID really has done for us. It's really helped uncover a whole bunch of like-mindedness that we didn't have to travel around, spend the gas money and the time in the car to find. They just came about. So Ben, I really appreciate it. The book is You Don't Need This Book. You don't need this book. Entrepreneurship in the Connected Era. It is released tomorrow. Go get your copy. Go to benmcdougal.com, order your copy, get a copy, do a book club, study this book, and then start building your entrepreneurial ecosystem right away. So Ben, we really appreciate your time today. Good luck with the future of the book and all your entrepreneurial ventures. We're going to have you back to get kind of an update and kind of a round two, if you will, as we dig deeper into ecosystems on helping communities build that. So we really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Tell Kim hello, and maybe she can join us on our next follow-up, our refill conversation. This has been a real pleasure. I appreciate everyone's time here today, and really look forward to hearing what you think about this book. But also, perhaps even more importantly, I'd love to connect. I'd love to learn more about your work and how to help accelerate you through the art of connection. And this is my passion. So I'm really thankful. May the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows, and keep building, my friends.
Appreciate that, Ben. Hey, yeah. Here's the coffee to you. Hang in there. I'll be right back with you. Oh, what a great conversation, guys. Hey, keep this going. Pass this conversation on in your community to maybe crack that door of building an entrepreneurship ecosystem within your community. And remember, we use the 4 pillars. We use relationships, engagement, collaboration, and entrepreneurship to build your entrepreneurial ecosystem, to build your entrepreneurial economy within your community. And Ben's chapters in there start to dissect what each of those pillars will do. This goes right along with how to build how to build your community. But more importantly, it helps you also think like an entrepreneur that will help you attract entrepreneur. So come on back tomorrow. We're going to be diving into the entrepreneurial world of growing aronia berries. High in antioxidants, very healthy berry. We're gonna talk the next couple of days about that association, that economy, how it is the superfoods that help build your body. Because if you don't have a healthy body, you can't be a healthy entrepreneur. So come on back tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Central Time, right here at Rural Community Solutions TV live stream on YouTube, Rural Community Solutions on our Facebook page, or catch the podcast, Think Like an Entrepreneur, Become a Spark Plug at anchor.fm/Frank Spillers. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.